Well, the federal government yesterday unveiled an 8-point agenda to revive the country's ailing economy, while insisting that the present administration inherited a bad economy with an inflation rate of 24% and unacceptably high unemployment. The federal government said the 8-point agenda was based on 8 priority areas with identified targets that would be delivered in the next 3 years. Also, the government assured Nigerians that the administration of President Bola Tinubu will not rely on borrowing and that he has pledged to be transparent, honest, and accountable to the people. Now, this is as the president promised to create about 50 million jobs through the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Meanwhile, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity says his principal will not hesitate to sack any member of his cabinet over incompetence. Well, I do have my guest with me, joining me virtually, of course. This morning, I have Charles Ideho and Chukwuma Okoro, both social commentators, and of course, they're joining us virtually. I must say, good morning to you, gentlemen. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning.
Chukuma, good morning to you as well. Okay, great. Just wanted to
Good
all right, I just wanted to be sure that I have you guys in. So now let me ask you, Chukuba, let me throw this first question to you now. Well, so much has been said about the president's economic plan. So far, subsidy gone, the naira floated. Where do we see the president? Where do we see the president really going with this economic plan? With this economy, rather? Chukuma, please.
Moses, if I have to be very blunt,
Please do.
I have not seen any direction given by the president, except to widen and increase the tax net so that Nigerians will be taxed more and more and more just to generate income. There's no policy formulation on ground. There's no policy direction about production, about earning foreign exchange to boost the economy and reduce inflation. The only thing that is on the table is how to increase the tax net to include more people, more poor Nigerians into the tax net so that Nigerians will on their own generate the money that will be used to run a bloated government, bloated lifestyle of government officials. Subsidy has gone, money was borrowed to give palliative, and the president turns around to tell us that he's not going to borrow money again, and there are plans on their way to bring back the subsidy through the back door, even if it is at a very low percentage. And what we hear is that Nigeria is going to borrow again. It's not going to borrow again, sorry. So where would it get the money from? Is there any plan for expanding the export base of the country? Is there any plan for industrialization to increase GDP and productivity? Certainly there are no plans. If there are plans, we have not been told. The only thing we have been told is that we'll be giving renewed hope every day. But clearly, I have not seen any policy formulation, policy direction that points to the fact that the president and his team have an economic plan. In the next few days, we'll be celebrating 100 days of the present administration, and there is clearly no direction. So when the president and his team speak about renewed hope and tie it into revamping the economy, I get lost because I don't actually know where they are coming from. So to me, like I said the other day, it is still sound bites to make headlines and give the people hope when there is no hope, where there are no hopes for Nigerians. That's it for me for now.
All right, now to Charles now. How would you sum up the president's economic moves in the last few days, almost 100 days now?
For me, I think it's just been try. Is it try? They call it trial and error or something? Yeah, I think they call it trial and error. You see that there's been policy, somersault, policy inconsistency. Let's just try this. Let's give it. Let's just give it what they call a knee-jerk approach. Of course, knee-jerk approach cannot be sustainable. Cannot be sustainable at all. It's not sustainable. So when the president, came out and through his spokesperson to be saying the president will not hesitate to sack any competent person, I asked myself, I mean, the ministers you just hired, they are just barely 1 week old in office. So you're already talking about incompetence. Does it mean that you're not sure of their integrity? You're not sure of their background of people you have gathered together? I thought the president had checked their backgrounds and checked their whatever they have done in the past, their whatever. So why would the president, in 1 week, 1 week after you have sworn them in, you're already guilty that any of them might be incompetent? But I think where we are now, we are at a crossroad where we either agree, we don't have to pretend again that we're not having problems. We either agree now for us to go back to production. I was on radio on Sunday where we had to look at what made Nigeria to be buoyant, in a manner of speaking, in the 80s. And I realized that by 1980 or thereabout, the Nigerian naira was exchanging for the dollar to 80 kobo. I said, how did we do it? And I realized that we were predominantly a producing nation, because we had no need for importation of cars that time, though even we're just importing a few to just meet just as a stopgap. We had at the time. Maybe Nigeria here, Pan in Kaduna. You had the Volkswagen plant here in Lagos. You had the Leyland in Ibadan. You had Stead that was producing tractors in Bauchi. You had Exide Battery in Ibadan that were producing the battery for the cars. You had Michelin Tire, Dunlop that were producing tires and seats. You have Isoglass that were producing the glass for the windscreen. All of them in Ibadan. Then you had the rubber plantation in Benue State, in Ogun, River State. Today, where are those ones? Then, even for paper industry, you had the one in Okuiboku in Cross River State, where we were producing pulp for paper need. But all these are gone. You also had even electricity. You had some of this the wire that we're producing here. You had even the gas the gas cylinder that were produced here. So we had no need for importation at that time. They were rather producing for our daily needs, our domestic needs, as well as for export. That was why the naira was very powerful. But again, we went mad when the government of Babangida said when there was a need. He accepted the IMF advice for us to devalue the naira when we had no need for it, and then we went mad. Today we are floundering. We are stuttering. We are stuttering to say what we want to do, and the president doesn't even seem to know whatever policy direction we want to take us out of the woods. So it's scary, and I can say that it's scary. Rather than give us hope, whatever they call it, whether it's renew hope, I don't see any hope that's renewed in this, whatever they're doing. And people are telling us to be patient. Patient for how long? We're patient for 16 years of PDP. We're patient for 8 years of Buhari. We're now being asked to be patient again. For how long? Is it when we are dead, we're patient until death? I think the president needs to sit down, talk to himself, to say, what I'm doing now is not going to lead us out of the woods. Let's find a way to return to production. Then NNPC, all of them, we need to say, okay, if Dangote can do it, why can't we do it? Look at Inosi Motor. Inosi is just a private concern. So if Inosi can do it, why can't we do it to say, okay, let's begin producing locally made cars? I can tell you, in India in those days, Indian economy was built, particularly the technology was built upon the copy and paste. They will go to America, take their car over there and bring it to India, they tear it to pieces and begin to now assemble, even using rudimentary technology. Can't we do it in Nigeria to ensure that we return to the production level rather than importation we are getting that hurting our economy?
All right, let me come back to you now, Chukuma. On Sunday, the president met with the NBA, and during the meeting, he said, look, I am willing to listen. He did emphasize that he's willing to listen to advice from anywhere and everywhere because he wants to move the nation forward. Now, if you were to give the president advice now, talking about the missing link in what is going on What would your advice be?
Charles, there are no two ways about it. If I have to give the president a voice about what you call the missing link is to move this economy forward
How?
and reduce the poverty level. The basic thing you asked how is to go back to being a productive nation and no longer consumption. Charles captured in a very good perspective. We cannot be importing everything and expect our economy to grow. It is not possible. It's not possible. We need to move from being a consumption economy to a production economy. Agriculture. Nigeria is blessed. Nigeria is the only country in the world where in all the 36 states of the Federation, you find all sorts of mineral deposits. You find oil, you find bauxite, you find lithium, everything, name it, is deposited in this country. But what do? We import things that we can produce. No economy grows that way. Look at limestone. Limestone is littered in almost about 4 or 5 states of the southeast and part of the south-south. Yes, Dangote has made good use of some of those deposits. And what is it? We have stopped producing cement. And we can do that for in every other sector of this country. So when the president talks about listening to Nigerians, but it was the same president that said Nigerians complain a lot. Why won't we complain? Why won't you complain? Nigerians can't feed. Nigerians can't drive their cars. Nigerians don't have housing. The environment is polluted. People are killed here and there. Insecurity everywhere. So why won't we complain? We have been complaining for the past 24 years and we'll continue to complain until things get better. And we are tired of sound bites, playing politics with Nigerians, telling us that you are giving your ministers, it's more like reading a riot act to them. Any of them that doesn't perform will be shown the way out. I see that statement more like a political statement, in the sense that the president is playing politics, even with the ministerial appointments. Let me tell you one thing that will happen, Moses. The president has used this ministerial slot to reward people that helped him win elections, so to say. And he knows about their competence levels. He knows that most of them are not competent. And like he said, he's going to match actions with words. Most of those ministers will be shown the way out very soon. Do you know why? He will have compensated them ministerially. The storm when the storm calms down, he's going to show many of them the way out. Now bring the people that he promised us that he was going to use to drive the economy. Don't forget that the president is a very smart fellow. Everybody is happy now. States are calm. Everybody is supporting him. In the next 1 year and a half, bet me, most of those ministers will be out of the way because he will have compensated them. But surely, if you don't perform, you'll be shown the way out. And he will tell you, look, I told you, like 2 weeks after appointment, that if you don't perform, I'm going to show you the way out. And he will put your scorecard on your desk and you'll see it. So that is what is going to happen. But I expect the president to do more of policy than the politics he is doing right now. It will help Nigerians a lot.
All right then, Charles, let me come to you now. Interested, because I asked this question earlier, not to you though, I asked it on one of our shows, that should we expect a reshuffling in the nearest time? And Chukuma just pointed to that there will be a reshuffling. This seems like a compensation thing. Now, let me ask you this. When the presidential spokesman says incompetence will not be tolerated, what exactly do you think are the yardstick for judging competence, and what time frame do you think should be given in terms of judging who is competent or who has been competent and who has been incompetent?
Time frame, we can't afford any time frame. Time frame starts now. Time frame should even be 24 hours. Because we've been in this wood for too long or so long. We can't begin to do any trial and error by now. We can't begin to have ministers who will be learning on the job. We can't afford it. We are trudging. Many nations, look at India. We were all in third world. We're all in the same WhatsApp group, the third world country WhatsApp group. How many years ago? Malaysia also came here, also in that same WhatsApp group. In a manner of speaking, Indonesia also in that WhatsApp group, but they all left us behind. Look at China. China had just accomplished a feat that no other country in the whole world has ever achieved. Being the only country, the fourth country to visit to be on the moon, and the only one that is able to visit to land on the South Pole, which America tried recently.
Is it China
Russia
or
tried it.
India now? That's India, right?
India. Yes, India. So, but where are we? Look at in 1976, if history is not failing me, South Korea was only able to manufacture bicycle. Today, now South Korea is importing cars to Nigeria. You understand? In the 80s, so I also learned that Saudi Arabia, the royalty was coming here to Ibadan, the UCH, for their medical checkup. But can you even imagine? Can you even if any prince, even any Saudi will come to Nigeria to go, might even send them to the hospital here? So it's not about time. The timeline is now. You don't give timeline is 24 hours. And when you say about incompetence, what I'm even thinking is that maybe the president also may not. I use the word adversely, may not know a lot of them that in his cabinet. As Chukuma has said, most of them may have been rewarded because of what maybe their paymaster may have done. Okay, you take this list. Well, this is my boy. This is my, go and put him there and all that. Now he's beginning to see, most probably, that most of them do not even have the competence to drive it. Look at the embarrassing thing that they did recently, that they had to now start shuffling. Somebody you put somebody in another ministry. Oh, sorry, you say, oh, sorry, this person is not competent. No, you now started reshuffling. So it's, I see a president that is jittery. I mean, in the manner of speaking, it's jittery that, oh, I hope these people I put there will be able to deliver the goods. So if you ask me about timeline, the timeline is now. We can't wait even any minute to say we want to start doing trial and error, or have to look at people who are going to be learning on the job. We can't afford people to be learning on the job right now. The president must walk his talk. If he suspects that anybody is not able to be in his team that will be able to drive his renewed hope mantra, the time to fire the person is now. We can't wait till tomorrow. At all, can't wait till he wants to celebrate 100 days. Because even when it's 100 days, I don't know what he's going to be doing. Look at even. Let me also add to it that just like Chukuma said earlier about the president relying on taxation. Look, in economy, I was business editor once upon a time. I know that what most countries do is that they leverage the primary and the secondary second level for them to be able to generate economy and to be able to reflect the economy met. But what we are relying on the tertiary level of economy, it's not going to work. You have to develop the primary, which is the agricultural sector, then to production sector before you can be talking about tertiary, which is taxation. It's only when people have earned money from this primary and the secondary, you can begin to tax them. You can't tax people on the tertiary level when you have not settled your primary and the secondary. The primary, I just realized that you can earn over $3 billion yearly from banana export. And meanwhile, if you go to NIHOT is in Ibadan, the Nigerian Institute of Horticulture or something in Ibadan. They have this banana you can plant that has just 5 years gestation, a 5 month gestation period. You can begin to harvest them. We have this. We have land in Edo State. That's Edo Delta. We have land in Ogun State. We have land in all this area, Ekiti and all that, where you can plant these things massively. But the government is not looking at the primary sector. It's not looking at the secondary sector. It's looking at the tertiary. How will you you tax people where you have not developed your primary and secondary sector? So it's befuddling, Moses.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about moving from consumption to production. We've talked a whole lot about that. Now, even during the campaign, one of the presidential candidates, Peter Obi, made a sing-song of it, how Nigeria should move from consumption to production, But how does Nigeria chart its area of strength in becoming an industrial powerhouse? I'm asking Chukuma now.
Moses, becoming an industrial powerhouse is to identify, like you said, our area of strength.
Yeah.
If you go to the north, the north has about the highest or the best or the largest arable landmass in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. Most agricultural produce, onions, tomatoes, beans, rice, are cultivated freely and in very vast quantities in the north. Do we have any business importing rice from Vietnam? Do we have any business importing rice from Thailand? These are people who were at the same level with us, like Charles said. People that we got independence almost at the same time. People that we even got independence before them. They have developed their industrial base, the agricultural sector. Look at the palm kernel issue that we always make reference to, that Malaysia and Singapore came to collect from Nigeria. Today, Nigerians export palm oil from the same people that we taught how to do the business. If you come to the southeast, we have the artisanal base that can be used to produce clothes, shoes. Aba alone can feed the whole of Africa with shoes, sandals, slippers that we need. Let me tell you one thing. In 2018, I attended a conference in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. My cousin there told me, brother, please, when you are coming, bring these enough of these senator wares for me. And I did as much as I could, given the baggage allowance that I had. You know that when we got to the Twin Tower, the Malaysia Twin Tower, he took me to one of those designers where he displays those clothes.
Okay.
He collects sewn clothes from Aba, shirts, and displays them as top high-class materials. And they are sold in very, very exorbitantly. So if you go to the southwest, there are things that thrive. If you go to the north central, there are things that thrive. In almost all the states of Nigeria, there are things that we can develop to compete internationally. And we have to take advantage of the AFTA free trade agreement that was signed. Nigeria is a powerhouse. Nigeria should be an industrial powerhouse. Unfortunately, we were faltering, and they went and cited the headquarters somewhere, I think in Ghana or where. We missed out of that one because we were not able to put our acts together. The emphasis should be go back to industrialization. And how do we do this? Before you go back to industrialization, you have to take care of the basics. You have to take care of electricity, power. Federal government just gave money, they call grants, to state governors and say use it to give to your people to start small-scale businesses. You give somebody 50,000 naira and the person uses 20,000 naira in the first week to buy fuel to power his generator because there is no power. How do you expect that business to survive? It doesn't work that way. Let's take care of the basics, take care of electricity. It is key, it is primary. In any industrial base, power must be available 24/7. If we take care of that, we take care of transportation. The road networks, some of them are dilapidated. When you produce, you can't even convey. In some parts, you see trailer loads of goods that are wasted. Why? Because there are no roads to convey them. It's only when you do these things, when you take care of, it's like building something on nothing. We are trying to build things on nothing. Like Charles said, the primary and secondary before the tertiary. these are the foundation, the building blocks. When you put the foundation very well, you can now start talking about other things. We need power, we need good roads, we need all sorts of basic infrastructure that are needed to drive the economy, so that at the end of the day, we'll go back to that production economy that we used to be, to compete, so that our foreign currency can be, if not at par, but relatively, at equilibrium with other currencies. That's the only way to move forward. If we keep talking about what was giving sound, I always go back to these sound bites, to give headlines. And when Nigerians read, they go back home and sleep. These things don't solve our problem. We need to do things right. And the president has his work cut out for him, because expectations are high. They have nobody to blame again. They blame PDP for the past 16 years. I'm sure they are not going to blame APC this time. So they have their work. The president has his work cut out for him with his ministers. There is no time to waste time.
No time to waste time, indeed. No time to waste time, indeed.
Moses, let me quickly add to about the Abba story. I think sometime last year or 2 years ago, I was shocked when I was told that some smart aleck amongst us, businessmen, who will go to Abba, the Abba tailors, we sew suits for them, they take them and then they brand them as Turkey made, and sell them as imported goods right here.
Yes, we've heard that.
There are some things you see made in FRON, you'll be confused. The FRON is Federal Republic of Nigeria. So they are afraid to put made in Nigeria there, because if you say it's Nigeria made, nobody. But these shoes are good, but because they also brand them Gucci and all that, and most of them are made in Aba. So because we are afraid to brand it Nigerian, they now become creative. They take this thing, go to Aba, they find a way to now look for Turkish brand names and all that, put them there and sell them right here in Nigeria as imported from Turkey.
All right,
the shoes made in Aba
now
will be described FRO, Federal Republic of Nigeria. What did it tell you?
Now,
Yes.
in light of this, Charles, now, how can we now make our own more acceptable amongst us? We need to find a way to encourage Nigerians to want to buy things that are made in Nigeria. How can we build that trust?
Good question. Now, the same Britain that colonized us, colonized India. Now, India got its own independence in 1947. What India did was that, well, Britain, we will accept your technology, we accept your education, but we will not accept your culture. We will not accept the British brand. That's why in India today, they deliberately teach the English language using their Indian accent. It's deliberate. Today, you can't see an Indian man answering John or Moses or Charles or everybody. They are all Indo-centric in their ways, in their dressing, in their cuisine. It's the same way. Imagine India. I understand that once you have been given a government appointment, it is compulsory you drive an Indian car. It could be a Tata, it could be an Indian car. It is compulsory. I understand it's also a deliberate policy for Indians that are appointed to serve in government or whatever government process that to drive an Indian-made car. When they started those cars, we laughed at them, but today they've evolved over the years, and you can see that Indians are even exporting cars to Nigeria. If we are with the very moment that government will begin to drive Nigeria, to begin to wear Nigeria, to begin to do everything Nigeria, everybody will go there. For instance, I mentioned, can you imagine if the president, he wants to spend holiday, you now go to Tinapa, for instance. Do you know what it will do to everybody will not be going to Tinapa. Now imagine if a president will say, okay, from the president downward, we're going to be driving Nigerian mid car, just as it was in the 80s. All government officials were driving. I'm sure Chukuma will be witness. We're all driving either Peugeot or Volkswagen. The headmasters of those days, the civil servant, they would give them loan to buy Volkswagen or buy Peugeot. That was exactly how we were able to drive our economy. But when your taste is foreign taste, how do you expect people, the everyday people, we have faith in what to manufacture here? Moses, that's the way to go.
All right, this seems to.
Hello, Moses.
Yes, please.
Hello, Moses.
Yes, please.
Yes, I want to add to what Charles said about having to value what we have. He gave the example of India. Let me take you back to Malaysia. There's a Malaysian product called the Pronto. That is their car.
Okay.
That's the Pronto. Pronto happens to be a Malaysian-made product. And it's more like a state policy. In Malaysia, if you don't want to drive Pronto, you have to pay 300% duty. 300% duty on an imported vehicle. You know what it does? What it does is to discourage Malaysians from driving foreign-made cars. So if you go to the city of Kuala Lumpur and you see a Mercedes drive past, 80%, 85% chances are that the driver will be a Chinese. You know, the Chinese are business people.
Okay.
They have a lot of money, so they can afford to flaunt the money. But government officials, every other person in Malaysia, 80% of Malaysians, it's more like a state policy. You have to use the Pronto. So that is what we should do to our own here. To innocent. And I'm happy that a lot of state governors are beginning to look the way of innocent to say, well, yes, this is our car. Peter Obi started it. A lot of the Jigawa governor bought about 1,000 or so of them now. Abia state governor has bought a lot from him. Enugu state government has bought. So it is not only about cars. When we were projecting made in Aba goods, made in Nigeria goods, but you saw our senators wearing Gucci from Italy to come and launch made in Aba goods. What an irony. What a paradox. You get the point. Look at how Charles is dressed now. Charles is talking about proudly Nigerian. Look at how I'm dressed. And Moses is a white man. He's wearing his suit. You know, so what we have to do is to value our own. We need to come home. We need to value ourselves. Look, like Charles said, most of these products are of high quality. What we just need is a little push. And after that push, we need government encouragement. We need government. Look at when Taiwan started. People were saying, even today, when you bring something, they say this one is Taiwan.
Okay.
But it doesn't happen again because Taiwan is a strong economy.
Okay, now let me because of time, let me just ask you this question, and I would like your response in the shortest time, so we can move to the second topic that we have. Now, the president has promised 50 million jobs, but even that we require more than good intentions. All right. Now we know that something drastic must be done to halt the Japa syndrome, the desire to want to run away from Nigeria, go abroad. We know that something must be done. Now we hear that which ministries of the federal government would you pick out of the those playing pivotal role in achieving something meaningful right now in terms of creating jobs, in terms of discouraging Nigerians from running out of the country, which of course is leading to a brain drain in a lot of sectors of the economy.
Charles, Moses,
yes.
The government technically does not create employment. What the government does is to make the environment conducive for the private sector to create employment. And how do they create this employment? By making sure that production thrives. How does production thrive? Empowering small and medium scale enterprises. Small and medium scale enterprises form the bulk of businesses that produce about more than 60% of businesses that contribute massively to the gross domestic product. When you hear that China is a powerful economy, it's all about the small and medium scale enterprises. People that produce in a flat, in one room, and export. Not about sewing uniform and giving people, and you have created employment. The 50 million job, if we go this way, is quite unrealistic.
All right then. Charles, let me ask you my final question for this topic. What would you consider as what would you look at as a parameter to determine whether a minister has underperformed or has performed well? What are the parameters that we should look at? Just a few in about a minute, please. Charles?
Well, we'll look at it sectorially. Sectorially, if, for instance, within the first 3 months, we are not beginning to see anything happening. For instance, I look at Bosun, the one that's in charge of communication. Of course, you know that a lot of views are supposed to be tied to that. If we're not beginning to see, startup, many new startups in the communication and digital economy, then I think he has failed. If within 3 months we're not beginning to see things happening, then the Ministry of Culture and the creative industry, you have the film, you have those people who are doing skit and all that, and then online marketing and all that. If you're not beginning to see anything, new startups in the next 3 months, that ministry also has failed.
All right then. So 3 months. That's a time frame that Charles is giving to them. All right. Up next on VOP this morning, all has not been well between Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and his deputy Philip Shaibu for some time now. But matters are now going from bad to worse, of course. Now let's talk about this when we return after this very short break.